All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about communication,
Okay.
specifically around dealing with delays. So
Mm.
you know how it is sometimes you're waiting on something?
Yeah, yeah.
It could be a package, a project, a decision,
Right.
and the silence is just killing you.
Oh, yeah,
You're
absolutely.
like, hello, is anyone out there?
Well, anxiety builds, right?
Exactly. And that's where good communication can really make or break the situation.
It really can, because when things are delayed, it's easy for trust to erode.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're communicating clearly and keeping people in the loop, it can actually strengthen those relationships,
That's a great point.
even when things aren't going according to plan.
So for this deep dive, we looked at a bunch of different sources, articles, blog posts, even some social media
The
discussions.
interesting mix.
Yeah, and one of the key takeaways was this idea of a communication spectrum.
A spectrum. Okay.
Yeah, so basically matching your communication method to how urgent the issue is. Like for routine updates or low priority stuff, email is usually fine.
Right. Email's the workhorse.
But when things get a little more time sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you need a quicker response, you bump it up to Slack or Teams.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And then for really urgent matters that need immediate attention, you got to pick up the phone.
Yeah, a phone call definitely carries more weight.
It does. Like it shows you're serious about getting this resolved.
Exactly, and it lets you have a real-time conversation, get clarification, address concerns immediately.
Which you can't really do over email or chat.
Right, and then on the extreme end of the spectrum, for the most critical situations,
Uh-huh.
where time is of the essence and the stakes are high, nothing beats face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, that makes sense. You get that in-person connection, the nonverbal cues,
Exactly, and that can be so important for building trust and understanding.
especially when you're dealing with something complex or sensitive.
Absolutely.
But I got to say, sometimes I wonder if this whole spectrum idea is a bit idealistic. Well, in the real world, things move so fast.
True.
And sometimes it feels like you're just trying to keep your head above water.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, I remember this one time I pre-ordered this limited edition video game. I was so excited for it.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Release day comes and goes. No game, no explanation.
Ooh, that's rough.
I'm constantly checking for updates, refreshing my email like a crazy person.
Been there.
Finally, a week later, I find this tiny little email buried in my spam folder
No way.
saying there's been a delay.
Seriously, a week later and in spam.
Yeah, talk about a communication fail.
That's a perfect example of where proactive communication could have made all the difference.
Proactive, okay.
Yeah, even if they didn't have all the answers right away, just acknowledging the delay, sending out regular updates.
Like, hey, we know you're waiting, we're working on it.
Exactly. It's about showing respect for people's time and keeping them informed.
And it probably would have saved them a ton of angry emails and phone calls.
For sure, because when people feel left in the dark, they tend to assume the worst.
Yeah, and it's not just about calming people down.
Right.
Sometimes being upfront about a delay can actually lead to finding new solutions.
Absolutely. You might discover that a customer is willing to wait a little longer.
Or maybe they have a suggestion for an alternative.
Exactly. So proactive communication can actually turn a potential problem into a collaborative opportunity.
That's a great way to look at it. So we've talked about the general communication spectrum,
Right.
but our sources also had some specific advice for retail businesses.
Interesting. What did they say?
They cautioned against making absolute promises, especially with promotions.
Oh, yeah, that's what.
Like, those pre-order situations where everyone's hyped for the latest gadget
Yeah.
and the store guarantees a release date, but then delays happen.
Supply chain issues, maybe, or production problems.
Exactly. And then customers are understandably furious.
They feel like they've been misled.
So the advice was to be more upfront about the possibility of delays
Manage those expectations from the start.
and be transparent about any potential hiccups.
Because let's face it, delays are almost inevitable in any complex process.
True. So it's better to be prepared and communicate honestly than to overpromise and underdeliver.
Absolutely. That initial transparency can go a long way in reducing frustration down the line.
And speaking of delays, we also wanted to touch on how to handle them in project-based work.
Yeah, that's a whole other beast.
Like imagine you've hired a contractor for renovations, or
Right.
you're working with a freelancer on a big project.
And suddenly there's a delay that throws off your entire timeline.
It can be super stressful.
Absolutely. And in those situations, our sources emphasize the importance of providing alternative solutions.
Okay, so not just saying, hey, we're delayed, sorry.
Right. It's about showing that you're still in control of the situation.
So what would that look like?
Well, let's say your contractor tells you there's been a delay with the plumbing.
Oh.
Instead of just leaving it at that, they could say, hey, We've already contacted a specialist. They're expected by Tuesday.
Okay.
We'll adjust the schedule accordingly and keep you updated every step of the way.
That would definitely make me feel better.
Right, because you know they have a plan and they're actively working to resolve the issue.
And you're not just left wondering what's going on.
Exactly. So it's all about clear, transparent communication, even when the news isn't what people want to hear.
So I think the big takeaway here is that communication tailored to the situation is crucial for building trust and managing expectations.
Absolutely. And it's really about treating people the way you'd want to be treated.
With respect and honesty.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a little something to think about.
Okay.
Is there a situation in your own life right now where a delayed project or unclear communication is causing you stress? How could you apply these principles we've discussed to improve the situation? Because sometimes just a little bit of effort in communication can make a world of difference.
Can save you and others a lot of frustration.
And who knows, it might even lead to some unexpected solutions.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.